We act as one, lest we perish alone.
Hello there, this is Swift, bringing you another game of Dawn of War 2 Elite on Pale Tooth Gorge, with Zulu Man playing as the Ethereal versus his mean, green, not so lean opponent, the Orc War Boss of Dervish. Dervish? I'm not sure. One of them. This is a very special game, because this is not a test build. This is a full release. This is actually properly Elite Mod 3.0. So for those who are somehow uninitiated, because I'm pretty sure that everyone who watches this channel is probably quite aware of the state of Elite, probably a lot more aware of what's going on with Elite than I am these days. But Tau have been in production for a long time and have been heavily workshopped for way longer than people realize. I mean, this faction has been worked on for... I think this iteration of the faction for Dawn of War 2 has been basically being workshopped for 6 years or more. Probably 6.5, 7 years at this point. 6-7 years. That's right. Tau have been worked on for 6-7 years. But I think the test builds for them have only been available for the last year or so. I'm not exactly sure. I wasn't really around when that was a thing. But this is a big moment for Elite, because this marks Elite adding another faction since Grey Knights. And people have to remember that Grey Knights came out 2012, I think, for Elite Mod. So yeah, it's been 14 years since a new faction was released in the mod, which, when you put it that way, yeah, kind of just shows you the insane timescale we're dealing with here. But here's to the next one. But more about this game. We have the Ethereal versus the War Boss, which is a very interesting matchup because, of course, the Ethereal is typically considered to be a bit of a sort of sorcerer, farseer-like character. Lots of buffs, lots of debuffs, but notably does have some very nice ways of slowing down the War Boss. Say, if this was a Chaos Sorcerer instead of the Ethereal, this matchup could go very differently, because Chaos Sorcerer is a character who struggles a lot versus these tanky, beefy, disruptive melee commanders, because he doesn't really have many slows, whereas the Tau, on the other hand, have good slows from the Ethereal and good slows from the Pathfinders with their grenades, the photon grenades. And interestingly, we see lots of gun drones for Zulu Man, and one of them, of course, upgraded to the heavy burst cannon, so that setup team is going to be quite nightmarish. We may be even seeing another setup team here for the other heavy gun drone squadron, or they might just be keeping them vanilla to harass the orcs. Which is, of course, why we see these Storm Boys coming out for Dervish. They also have 2 Slugger Boy squads, which is going to prove to be kind of tricky for the Tau. In fact, a 3rd heavy gun drone squad. These are presumably on Overwatch for Zulu Man. They must be a big fan of the gun drone playstyle, and one of the unique things to the gun drones is, of course, how they can shoot in 360 degrees, so you can micro them in any direction and they'll still keep shooting, which is a very unique way of showing just how different the drone playstyle is. So we might actually be seeing a really unique take from Zulu Man here, using 2 squads of gun drones to basically just act as cheap fodder, flying around the map, constantly kiting. And that's what they should be doing, because the Pathfinders can kite to an extent, but the drones can infinitely kite. You know, they are basically just able to kite forever. And we can see, actually, these sluggers may pay for it with their lives, and they do, which is not what you expect to see so early in the game, seeing these gun drones take something down, because after all, the gun drones are not the most powerful, shall we say. So far, no unit losses for Zulu Man. We do see Dervish going for the Looter Squad. So just kind of something to help control these gun drones, who I believe can be suppressed. I don't think they're immune to suppression. I don't even remember if I wrote their entry so that they would be immune to suppression. It's been that long. It's kind of funny looking at the Tau faction, because Adilla and I had a lot of involvement with it in the earlier years, and surprisingly, even though it has gone through many hands and had many revisions, there is a surprising amount of the Tau faction that works basically how Adilla and I envisioned them. Not completely, there's plenty of numbers that are tweaked, there are plenty of units in different parts of the roster, there are plenty of different units, plenty of different war gear upgrades, different roles for things, but broadly, it's actually very familiar to me, which is kind of cute. These drones though. These drones are not really made for skirmishing in that regard, just walking into the line of fire. They do look super weird when they retreat, because they kind of don't turn around, but drone behavior, hey? We do actually see that these orcs are being very neatly outflanked. I'm not sure what the Pathfinders were doing with that photon grenade, because I'm not sure what disruption it does. I know it slows things down. I don't think it reduces accuracy or anything, but maybe it does. But obviously it didn't really do a lot to the looters. Map control is reasonably even. I would say it's maybe slightly more orc favoured at the moment. But there is a bit of a stalemate in mid that should be broken by these Storm Boys jumping in. Torpid obviously says Storm Boys best unit in the game. Not best unit for orcs, mind you. He means literally the best unit in the game. I'm not one to argue with Torpid, so I won't argue. Ethereal is using their ability, which I know the name of. It is called Etherealize. Realize, Etherealize. That's right. I know what I'm talking about. It's a very good job that those burner boys were forced off, because these gun drones getting in the garrison could have been a very tasty snack for those burner boys. But yeah, we do see suppression on the drone, so I was right, they can actually be suppressed. This is Ethereal, it's actually kind of low. He's got a very small starting HP pool for a melee hero at 550 health. It's not the kind of HP pool that most melee heroes have, but Ethereal, of course, is not really a melee hero in the truest sense. He's more melee by default rather than melee by choice, if you see what I mean. But this is a very interesting build. This Zulu Man build reminds me a lot of some of the Unconventional Company of Heroes 2 builds that I used to use, where for anyone who played that, I used to use an anti-Brits build in 1v1, which was basically sort of like double scout units with the Austere faction, and then 3 setup teams. And basically you would just have your 2 scout units do all of the capping and the screening, and then you would just have your setup team slowly crawl up the map and zone the enemy out, and then of course get a transport or some kind of light vehicle very quickly so that the enemy can't just easily deal with your infantry. it's certainly a novel approach to see something like that being tried in Dawn of War 2, and we do see the base is pretty near here. You do have to be careful. Weird Boy, though, seems like a nice answer. That Foot of Gork is going to be brutal. Why are they not getting in the... Oh, boy. There was a big micro failure there by Zulu Man. We all make them. That could be very bad for the Ethereal. It is very bad for the Ethereal. Thankfully, this is not 4th edition tabletop, and the Ethereal doesn't cause your entire army to want to commit Sudoku. But losing your hero still nonetheless not great. And we do see a supplementary gun drone squadron being called down, as well as some Kroot carnivores being bought here. So Zulu Man going for some extremely heavy rosters. I'm not sure what they're doing with these gun drones, keeping them in. But these Kroot carnivores are healing like crazy and not reinforcing, I don't think, but they were buying their leader. They've obviously upgraded themselves. I still need to refamiliarize myself with what they do, and Zulu Man has somehow just been able to pump out units at this point, because now we have the broadside battlesuit, and obviously we had the gun drone swarm called down from the global bar. I do believe these guys can't reinforce. They're more just like extra pressure that are applied. I don't think they can reinforce. But I might be wrong in that. Warboss going for the Power Claw, so this could be an interesting fight. They unfortunately don't really do a lot, the Swarm, but hey. I'm very interested to see what the Broadside does, though, because this Broadside is setting up by a shot blocker, which is not really what you want. But I'm really intrigued to see what the Broadside was bought for, because there aren't any obvious targets for the Broadside to take out, except for maybe the Weird Boy. Broadside is broadly an anti-vehicle unit, but, you know, it still functions somewhat like a plasma cannon, just with a very, very small radius. These Ork Slugger Boys getting in there. This is a slightly awkward moment for Micro even, but that grab inhibitor is so nice, just throwing the boys off there. And it's kind of amazing, like Zulu Man right here is just displaying how Tau can divide and conquer very effectively, and Dervish is just being a little bit too reactive, I think. Not proactive enough. Too many of their units getting split up right here. That said, they do have the VPs in their favour, and as I was told last game, which was Adilla versus Kornilov, I can tend to be quite mean to people, apparently, when I cast games, which I find quite amusing, and is probably true, to be honest. I tend to accidentally bash people. And, you know, I don't say anything because I am like, oh, I'm much better than people. I fully accept that I am the worst player in the game. I don't even play the game anymore, really. I'm terrible, but I think it's more my commentary style comes off as bashing people, because it's like I'm confused about what they're doing, and sometimes I can't necessarily see the strategy for what's in front of me, you know? Like Zulu Man's strategy right now makes a lot more sense to me, because it's actually something that I would have considered doing myself in some slightly different contexts. But when I was watching Adilla in the last game, he was making some really odd plays, and it looked like he was losing the game, but he was bleeding Kornilov VPs the whole time, so it didn't really matter. And he was actually, as people pointed out, actually playing quite well, because he was getting wipes where Kornilov just couldn't. Unfortunately, you're going to see the loss of this gun drone squad here. It's only a gun drone swarm, so it is basically a distraction. And the Warboss goes down again, trying to take on these gun drones in this hut. I mean, Paletooth Gorge and Greentooth Gorge, like it really is just not great for anyone trying to deal with setup teams. Like, there are just quite a lot of garrisons to hide in for them. That Beamy almost got a really nice shot on the rear armor, but the Devilfish is just outside of the radius. Stormboys do jump in. They actually might clean up this gun drone squad, but these Kroot have got something to say about it. They're quite beefy at this point, 1300 HP, and of course they do have multiple ways of restoring their health quite quickly in combat. I do need to do some more reading into the Kroot, because Kroot are basically my favorite aspect of the Tau faction. They're just super interesting to me. I don't know why. There's just something about their nature, their design, their aesthetics that just really appeals to me. I absolutely love that Games Workshop just in the last couple of years have really lent into the Kroot as basically a sub-faction within Tau and given them so many more models now. It's a very cool thing, and it was something that I'd really love to see, obviously, worked into the mod a little bit more if possible. A Kroot Shaper hero would be my absolute dream, and I obviously designed a Kroot Shaper for the mod years ago, but I don't think that design will feasibly be used in any real sense. Anyway, speaking of the game, this grav inhibitor drone is in serious trouble versus these Stormboys, but they actually change focus right now, going for this much more important broadside. And quite frankly, it looks as if Zuluman has kind of forgotten that they have an entire army chilling in base right now, and this broadside is unfortunately taking the toll. These Kroot carnivores are in a bad spot here. I think Zuluman just slightly too... That was way too clutch. That was way too clutch. Oh my goodness me. Yeah, I was clenching my unmentionables watching that. That by all rights, that broadside really, I feel like that should have died morally. Not because I think that Dervish was cheated, but it should have been a moral victory for Dervish there because of Zuluman not quite microing the drones to help deal with the threat of the Stormboys. In fact, they have lost one of their Pathfinders, so not super ideal, but Dervish has also dropped a Slugger squad. And this Wit Boy also looking a little bit unhealthy right now with our Ion Cannon Hammerhead just doing significant amounts of damage. It does have to be careful with the looters, although it could definitely do some serious damage to them, but probably doesn't want to stick around with the knobs. That was probably one of the most up and down sequences of sentences that I just had then, where I was going, the Hammerhead could do well here, and then, oh no, it's got to be careful, but look out, it could do so much damage here, but oh, it's got to be careful. This is what happens when I do a cast at like 9 in the evening and I'm slightly wired because it is a little bit hot and I've probably had too much caffeine today. You gotta stop me, but don't you dare stop me. These... what is that? That is some kind of indicator for one of the carnivore abilities I'm not familiar with. These gun drones just going to go and peel off models from the looters, just force them off, make a bit of space for the Hammerhead to do its thing. And I love the way that these drones are able to just casually skirmish, like they're not doing loads of damage. Okay, they are walking through the enemies. That grav inhibitor drone is so funny, just throwing models around. I absolutely love it. It's a very creative way of utilizing the grav inhibitor, because you could have a really boring thing like, oh, it provides an AoE that slows enemy units, but the idea that it can basically be like a free, well, not free, but free, what's it called, what's the hand icon, the crossed hands for the warlock, the throw, the phantom throw, you know the one that I mean, the one where the warlock just throws something somewhere. Ethereal throw. I don't know, but you get the idea. I like that it's gone for a slightly more creative approach rather than just boring, slowing aura. See a small sort of stalemate here though, as Zulu Man kind of just has really made Dervish struggle, because Dervish was initially ahead on the VPs and now it's really flipped the other way. It's looking pretty bad for Dervish. Maybe this looted tank will help to set things right, but who knows? This War Boss is level 4, could probably stand to do a little bit more right now. I'm actually wondering if like an Angry Bits upgrade for the War Boss to help deal with these whatever the hell they are, the Kroot Carnivores, would be pretty good. Interesting, we see a Barracuda strafing run here. Is that Barracuda strafing run or is that something else? Oh no, this is a Sky Ray. This is a Sky Ray missile barrage, I think, is the one for the Ethereal. I think the Barracuda strafing run is more in a line, so it being a strafing run, that kind of does make sense. But yeah, we're seeing Dervish just kind of not able to get the momentum, and Zulu Man is even getting incredibly cheeky and looking for a triple cap right now. Looted Tank is doing a decent amount of damage to these Kroot Carnivores, but obviously tanks can't cap in this game. This is not Company of Heroes 2. And this looter squad just going to be setting up, and again it's just a case of what does Dervish do to break the lines, and I honestly think an Angry Bits on the War Boss right now would do wonders for tearing through Zulu Man's ranks and just disrupting things a lot. Because I think investing a lot in the War Boss in this matchup would be probably desirable. I don't know if you can necessarily make it work completely. This Ethereal has really only got one upgrade, which is the Utilitarian Annihilation. Oh, that'll be what the bombardment was. Okay. So it wasn't a Skyray global barrage, but rather something from the Ethereal. And yeah, here we see just a triple cap closing the game out for Zulu Man, who goes from 249 BBs to 0, and Dervish put up a good fight against Zulu Man, but some very, very unconventional tactics here by Zulu Man with their gun drones just gave Dervish a really hard time, and we saw some very interesting moments where the Orc melee wall was just outwitted by the wiles of the Tau Empire. Unfortunately, didn't see too much from the Ethereal in this fight, but I do appreciate that we saw some very interesting drone action.